Hey everybody, on here, and I'm coming to you with this month's video. And it's really interesting what's coming up for people, and it's always interesting to me to find out how things connect to the codes. And oftentimes I hear people start talking about something, and then I'll go back and I'm like, yep, makes perfect sense. It's right there. It's right there in the codes. And this month, what I'd like to do is to talk about something that's maybe a little more intense that is coming up in our codes, and that is currently also present to a certain extent in our codes. And that has to do with this victim energy. Now, a lot of people come into these spaces and they don't always know it, and hopefully we're not going to get too much noise, by the way. I'm right close to a main road, believe it or not. Not big road, but a road. And so this victim energy that comes up, and a lot of people have contacted me recently saying, I feel like I'm under this psychic attack. I feel like I'm just being bombarded with this negative energy and things like that. And it wasn't just one person. It was like multiple people in my life. It was women, it was men, it was younger people, it was older people. So it definitely, whenever I hear that, I get this understanding that there's a lot of the shared experience that's happening. And so when we look at victim energy, this is so important and so critical in our times. And even outside of what the codes show, it's not surprising that a lot of people are feeling this. It's not surprising that a lot of people are having this experience right now. So from code perspective, when we look at victim energy, we have a couple of different things that are happening. One is where we have turned our power over to somebody else, or where we feel trapped in a situation and we believe that we don't have a way out of it. We feel like, okay, I have to do this because I have to hold on to my job. I have to do this because I'm being told it's the right thing to do. And we have so much negative programming that we don't even realize that we have been told is positive. And one of the phrases that is out in our world a lot that people think is a good phrase, and it actually isn't. It has almost a 180 from what they think it is, and that is for the greater good, for the benefit of everybody's health, and those are all in that same theme of for the greater good. Well, this is exactly what puts people in victim energy. This is exactly what's doing it. We have had a lot of things come up over the last year that have brought people into the space of feeling guilt and feeling shame when they haven't even done anything wrong. And this can be a real challenge. It's a real challenge to our psyche. And so when we talk about these aspects of being under psychic attack, the psychic attack that we're experiencing now is such a subtle form in our world. It comes in these very subtle, almost unseen or unknown ways. And it gets us to attack ourselves through negative thought. And that's where the real victim energy comes through, because we have two aspects. Either we're in a victim space because we have chosen to turn our power over consciously or unconsciously or feel forced to, or we are holding ourselves in these negative thoughts, these negative beliefs, these aspects of being bombarded. And if you look at what's happened in our world, certainly there has been a ton that has been bombarding our psyches. There's been one psyop after another going on, for lack of better terminology, but we've been bombarded with negative news, with fear aspects, with aspects of that create anxiety, that break down the self-worth. And all of these things are lies. They're all just lies. And I don't mean just in the standard propaganda type of sense. I mean, they're lies in the sense of this is not God's energy. And when we come to understand that this is not God's energy, that then we can start to break through the lies. We can start to break through these victim patterns, because God will not place us in fear. God will not put us in a space of being less than or better than somebody else. God will not put us in a position of feeling worthless or placing a value on us that we cannot achieve, or guilt us into a particular type of action. This is why God gave us choice. And so when we start to look at these victim patterns, there's another aspect to it. And the victim pattern can be very awakening. It can be very eye-opening for us. And when I say this, oftentimes we hit the spirals and we just spiral around and around and around in these patterns, but we don't even know we're there, right? But the victim energy is really connected to our success energy. And so we hear about this, for example, in the law of attraction, right? If you don't believe you can't, if you believe you can't, you can't. If you believe you can. Wherever your thoughts are, that's what you're going to manifest, and so on and so forth. Well, what's interesting when we talk about a victim pattern in regards to our success energy from a code perspective is that we realize that we are the ones that are in power. And so when we are in the victim's part of it, it's a distortion of the success energy patterns. And when I say that, that means that we have accepted a belief that we no longer have power over our own life. We no longer have the freedom to create something. We believe that success can only come if somebody else gives it to us. And this is absolutely not true, because we then have to stop and look at how are we defining success? Are we defining it only by material things, or we must be defining it by somebody else's standards instead of God's aspects of success? Because, here again, when you start looking at that, it's about being better than, less than, meeting a certain goal, meeting a certain achievement. And if we remove these concepts and we say, I just want to do this, I just want to make this achievement, I just want to make this accomplishment, and remove it from being attached to success. So this detachment aspect comes into it. So also the other aspect of being in a victim space, what we find is there are roots in that victim space that are oftentimes connected to jealousy of some sort. It could be jealousy because we're not being accepted. It could be jealousy because we see somebody else accomplishing something and we're not getting it. Somebody else might be getting recognition and we want recognition, things like that. And that's a big eye-opener too, because if we're doing things for recognition, if we're doing things for getting noticed, for a particular accolade, we're not doing them for ourselves, and we're not doing them from divine spirit. And this is one of the things that is very, very elusive to us. Very easy to feel like, again, well, I'm doing something good, but we're still doing that for the sake of a reward. And so when we truly stand in our success energy, we're going to pull ourselves out of the victim energy. When we're truly standing in that space, what we're going to do is that we are going to stand with the God presence. We are going to repeatedly open an invitation for the divine to exist. We are going to be perseverant in something, whether anybody else supports us in it, whether anybody else recognizes us for it or not. We do it because it is something that supports love, compassion, kindness, that supports this aspect of opening divine presence. And this has become, again, very, very distorted on our world today. So many things are put out there saying, oh, but it's good for you to do this. It's good. When you start hearing somebody say it's good for you to do this, you're really going to want to take a second look at it, because it probably isn't. No matter how beautifully it's packaged, it probably isn't good for you. When they start saying, well, you need to do this for everybody else. You need to do this for the greater good. right there, that's a big red flag. That is filled with so much lies and distortion. And I could probably talk for hours, and there's hours and hours and hours and days and weeks probably of videos out there that get into the depth of all of that. But for us coming back, what we want to start to think about, well, how do I get out of these victim patterns? When I notice I'm in there and I feel victimized and I feel like I'm under this psychic attack and I feel like I'm in this space, and it's easy, right? Because in our world today, we're bombarded with all of this negative news, all of this pushing a worthlessness mindset, all of this pushing of who's okay and who's not okay, and all of these things. And really, when it comes down to it, it's a personal process, because oftentimes we figure, well, I don't know how to impact the bigger world. I'm not a person who likes to do all kinds of group interactions. I am not a person who's comfortable, being out there in a protest or whatever it is for you. But when you come down into it and you stop and say, but I do have power over my own life. I do have power over my own feelings. I do have the ability to be in alignment with divine presence. And I have multiple ways I can do that. I have multiple tools I can use. And of course, many of you know Jessie's story, and you know the challenges that she went through, and the tough times, and the one thing after another. And my human existence is not a human existence. This body is not in a really easy alignment, let's say. And so when we get into these aspects, she always had a choice. Am I going to be a victim to these people, to this situation? Am I going to let them run my life or not? And so many people get trapped into this space because they feel like, well, if I don't accept these circumstances, then I can't eat, I can't live, I can't put a roof over my head, I can't take care of my family, I can't do this. But we have to come back to the fundamental principles. And we oftentimes, when it comes down to threatening some of our basic needs, when it comes down to questioning our survival skills, it then opens a new layer of where we will sacrifice ourselves. And this is some of the aspects that we're actually facing in our world today, where people are getting their basic needs threatened. And when our basic needs get threatened, that's when we're most likely to sell out. That is when we are most likely to cave and give in to what is not of God's presence. And yet, because our psyche, our training, our mind is, I can't see in this moment any other way. But the interesting piece is when we have the perseverance to stand in integrity, when we have the perseverance to stand in truth, and every single time we do that, we invite divine presence in. And when we have the perseverance to give ourselves positive input, and I don't mean just the phrases, but sometimes we can use the tools like music, and we can use positive mantras or things like this to help us along the way. But it goes even beyond that. It is through every action, through every feeling, and it's about owning the moment and saying, you know what, I'm not going to feel like crap. I'm going to acknowledge what's there, but I'm not going to feel that way. And I'm going to choose to stop and consciously draw in the feeling of joy. And we all have the memory of it. We all have a knowing within us of what it feels like for God to completely fill us, to have that God divine presence completely immerse our body. And in the process of that, we have to be able to let go of other things. But when we stand by these principles, when we take these actions, when we live, and every choice that we're making throughout our day is based in truth and integrity, and we're willing to actually see where, we might have to relook at how we've been looking at things. And when we place inviting God or divine presence into every aspect and everything that we do as our top priority, we will free ourselves from being victims. We will free ourselves from the psychic attacks. We will be shown a way out of the challenges. But we have to have that perseverance. We have to have that commitment to it. That is what brings the success. That is what pulls us out of the distortions that make us think we're a victim. You know, we've been so programmed that, well, if you're not part of the group, then you're not okay. If you're not following what we want you to follow, you're not okay. And we're made to believe it's a failure if you can't fit in. We're made to believe that you have failed in some way, or that you're not good enough, or that you're not worthy enough. And again, triggering all of these subtle victim patterns out there. And it's absolutely not true. What if standing on your own was the success? What if being able to walk away from a group who is doing the wrong thing is the success? What if having the perseverance to face the fears that come up for you in the process of doing what is in truth and integrity and divine alignment is the success? You see, we need to reframe this. We need to reconsider what it really is about. And when we start to do this, and it can be in the subtlest motions, like I said, you know, we get bombarded, and when you start getting these negative feelings, you've got to stop. You've got to put just a halt on pretty much everything in many ways and just stop. And whether that is repeating in your head, you know, I am God's light, I am God's love, you know, God is always with me, God is going to show me the way. Whatever it is for you, whether that is plugging in brainwave music, whether that is taking a couple of days off and going and doing what they call forest bathing, which is being among the trees, whether that is spending time in meditation, any of these things, you know, you've got to disconnect from these sources that are giving the negative input. And we have to be committed to this over a period of time, because you see, the programming has come in because we've been bombarded with it for a certain period of time. So we have to be persistent enough to do things on a daily basis. And it doesn't mean you have to do the same things day in and day out. You could do different things as long as you are giving yourself the positive input, as long as you are surrounding yourself with people who are thinking clearly, who are also standing in divine presence. And I do this. I have a network of people, and you know, thank God we don't all crash at the same time, but we all kind of, as we like to say, hold each other up. And, you know, whenever one of us is crashing, then, you know, the others hold us up, and so on and so forth. And we do that exchange for one another. And this is so, so important these times. So we are never, ever, ever powerless when we feel like we're under these psychic attacks. We are never, ever, ever powerless when we are in these illusions of being a victim. We simply need to come back within. We need to simply come back into the perseverance. And again, the perseverance is about integrity in everything we do. It is not about being perfect in this world's illusion of perfect. It is not about having to do specific things. It is about upholding integrity. It is about standing in the truth. It is about seeing these victim patterns as a lie and calling them out and saying, you're not going to be in my life. I don't accept you. I choose to invite God into this situation. I choose to invite divine presence to move through all of this. And I claim this for the divine God. I claim this situation, I claim my life, I claim everything in this world to be infiltrated with God's presence, the divine presence. It's simple, it is powerful, and I'm here to say don't give up, because I know a lot of people, when certain things haven't been coming through in our world, they haven't seen certain results, or maybe they didn't get the results that they wanted. They've just been like, that's it, we're done. We can't do anything. We're powerless. And it's not true. Those are all lies. Those are all lies to get you to give up on God. Those are all lies to get you to break down. And we're in times that the challenges aren't just going to go away. We're not just going to wake up and the world's going to be different. The way the world is going to be different, the way that we're going to get to that space that so many people want to be in, is through integrity and truth. And we're going to have to learn. We're going to have to take the time, even when it can be heavy on us. We're going to have to take the time to understand what these things are really about, because there's a heck of a lot of deception in our world right now. There's a heck of a lot of disorientation. And 2005 in the codes, I talk about it a lot. There is a literal good versus evil fight going on. And most of us don't like this because we don't like to be in battle. We don't like to be in fight. And why is that? Because the truth is there is no fight. The truth is that God wins. The truth is God wants us here being aspects of God's presence. And again, we don't do that by following somebody else's commands. We don't do that by bending to somebody else's will. We do that through truth and integrity. We do that through kindness to one another. We do that through compassion. That's how we do it. And we bring that into every single thing that we do. And I know from experience, I know firsthand that when we do this, life becomes incredible. Life becomes amazing. It may not be always the way you think it should be, or that your human ego or self wants it to be. But when you release that and you let go and you step into it and you keep inviting it in, it becomes more amazing than what you ever thought it could be. So there's my thoughts for this month. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I would love to hear your thoughts. By the way, I don't say it often because I'm really not a big marketing person, so to say, but I do encourage people, help other people. And one of the ways you can help, subscribe to the channel, click for the messages so you make sure you're getting notified when the videos come out, and, support. That's one of the ways you can support. And share this with other people, because other people are going to need to hear this too right now. They need to hear about it, because there's a lot of people that you may not even know about that are going through this. And take the time to leave a comment. Did you like the video? Do you like the topic? Are there topics you want to know about? Are there aspects of I don't know, that you want to share? What is being a victim to you? Give me some hints, give me some input, and leave it in the comments, and let's see where that takes us. And who knows, I can maybe address some of those things in future videos as well. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to make sure you've got your copy of the Code Journey, because it's one of the ways that I keep my sanity. It's one of the ways that every single day of my life I bring in divine presence. It's one of the ways that I stay out of victim spaces. And a lot of people have commented on this. They've said, my goodness, that book has helped me so many times. That book is like my friend. That is like my own personal friend that helps me keep this compassion, love, kindness, God-centered mindset. And It is powerful because it does remind you each and every day that you have the power to make a difference in your life. You have the ability to work with the influences that are out there. Take care, everybody, and I'll see you next month.